So if you're a fan of SolidJS or you're considering making use of it inside of your next project, maybe because of how performant it is, or you're planning on trying out SolidStart 1.0, which was recently released, well, one question you might actually ask is, are there any UI libraries for SolidJS? This is one of the reasons why we love React. It's going to be pretty stressful, and especially for someone like me who is a lazy developer, to actually start building out some of these UI components, and where you can actually find UI libraries in which you can bring in and use and customize. This actually saves you tons of time. And I've gotten about 11 different UI libraries for SolidJS, which I'm going to be showing you and rating each one of them and letting you know which ones are currently in development and which ones can be used as of now. And before we jump in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's really going to be helpful to me and this channel. Now, thank you. Without wasting any time, let's dive right in. Now, the first one we're going to be looking at is Terracota, which claims to be the headless UI for SolidJS. We have the GitHub repo and it's mainly developed by this guy right here, Alexis. And one thing is, Terracota is actually still in development, and I really do not recommend making use of this because the last update that is actually here is 4 months ago, and something that is currently in development, I believe that it should actually be updated frequently, and issues that people have concerning it should be resolved promptly. And if you look at the issues right there, we have some issues there from 2023 and even 2022 that actually haven't been attended to. So rather than this being like a full project, I feel like this is more of like a side project for Alexis. So 1 out of 10. Now, the second one I actually want to show you is also in development, but it is Solid Aria, and it is a set of high quality primitives to help you build accessible user interfaces with SolidJS. And I won't really recommend this also because just like previous one, which is Terracota, it is still in development and it doesn't really have any docs to go along with it except for this readme that we have here. And the last push to this is actually like 2 years ago. So yeah, I'm definitely not using this. 1 over 10. Now, let's move on to Pigment. Pigment is not yet available on NPM as we can see right here, but it is an open source design system for SolidJS. And this is one of the reasons why I actually like this. This is made specifically for SolidJS and it is built with Koblate and Tailwind CSS. And we're going to look at Koblate later on. It's also on this list. And the current component that we have available, we have the highlights right here, so as we can see, which actually looks nice, and this is one of the reasons why I like it. It uses the CSS underneath the hood, and you can actually customize this. We have the badge, okay, so we can add different badges here. We have button with different states, color, and they are customizable, which is very nice. We have checkbox, also icons, and then we have the text field, and these all look real nice. I mean, let's scroll down. We can add icons to these. We can see that we can add buttons, okay, inside of a text field, which is actually making a lot of sense. And I believe that by the time this is completed, this is going to be a very solid UI design library, no pun intended. But let's check out the GitHub repo. We can see that the changes to this actually is much more frequent than the others. Okay, so this was still updated about 2 weeks ago, and we can see here that this is really actually being developed, which is very nice. And out of the box, I think it actually supports server-side rendering. So if you're using SolidStart, you can basically just plug it in and it's going to work. But then the fact that it's not available on NPM, it's not finished yet, so we can basically use it in a live project. I'm going to give this 3 out of 10. Now, the next one I'm going to show is ZagJS. Okay, so this is a set of framework agnostic UI components, and you can basically use it for React, Vue.js, SolidJS, and Svelte, which is really interesting. So this is an example right here. Okay, this is an example using React. We have for Vue. We have for Vue single file components, and we have an example for SolidJS right there. Okay, so let's actually look at it. Let's look through it and see what Zag is about. Okay, so it says yes, Zag is a framework agnostic toolkit for implementing complex, interactive, and accessible UI components in your design. Works for React, Solid, Vue, which is very nice. Okay, it says yes, Zag is part of the next evolution of Chakra UI, one of the 4 arms of the future of Chakra UI. And this itself actually gives it a bit more reputation, should I say, and makes me feel a bit more comfortable with this. And besides, they actually have tons of components right here, though some are still in beta and still being developed, but we can see it right here. This is actually nice. Okay, we have for React and we have for Solid, and even the documentation is actually solid. Okay, so looking at it right here, okay, let's change the framework right here to Solid, since we're going to be basically using it with Solid, and we have examples here in SolidJS. Okay, let's look at pin inputs. All right, I just want to look at the code. Okay, so for the pin inputs, okay, we have, this is interesting. How about something very simple like button? Okay, this doesn't have a button component, but let's look at the toasts. Okay, so show toast, and we can see it right here. Oh, this is a nice update. Wow, this is real nice. And this is the code right here. I could probably use this in a project. This is real nice, and it actually works, except for some components that are actually missing, that are not there, and some that are still in beta. But overall, 5/10. Now let's move on to SUID, and this is just basically Material UI for SolidJS. This is so nice. If you're a fan of material design, Material UI, well, this is an equivalent in SolidJS. This is basically a port of the Material UI library for React, written specifically for SolidJS. So let's get started. Let's look at it. And okay, I just want to look at some of the components. Let's look at the text field. Okay, so we have here this. All right, they all look nice, but what I want to look at mostly, what I'm more interested in, is basically the code. All right, so this is very nice, just like what you're going to expect out of using any UI library. This is actually so nice. We have all the necessary components that is needed. Okay, we have the drawer right here, and I can click on this left, okay, right, top, bottom. I mean, this is actually real nice. And looking at the code right here, okay, though we have a bit of boilerplate code, which is expected. Okay, let's actually look at the installation. Okay, so all you just have to do is install SUID, the dev dependencies, and then the SUID dependencies. Okay, and this is actually real nice. The one thing that isn't specified, which I don't know because I haven't used it yet, is if it works with server-side rendering and wouldn't really give issues with something like SolidStart. Because as we can see, the example we have here is just for a pure vanilla solid project. So overall, I'll say 6/10. Now let's move on to another port, which is Solid Bootstrap. Wow, this is getting interesting. All right, this is basically Bootstrap for SolidJS. It's just similar to something like React Bootstrap, which is basically Bootstrap built specifically for React.js. Okay, let's get started. Let's basically look at this. Okay, the installation. All right, this is nice. Let's basically look at the component right here. Okay, we have all the Bootstrap components as expected, and let's look at the code. Okay, I mean, I actually love these, given the fact that unlike the previous one we looked at, which is SUID, for this, for example, I don't have to have too much boilerplate of a code. Let's basically look at something like tabs, for example. And I just want to look at the code. Okay, this right here, this level of abstraction, it's very, very, very nice when working with a UI library. I mean, I don't want to have to start, okay, creating some states by myself. If I wanted to do that initially, I would have actually written the code by myself. This is actually nice. So we have all of the necessary components. Let's look at the modal. Okay, I just want to look at the code. Okay, all right. So let's look at this. So create signal. Nice. This is actually nice. All right, let's try this. This works. This is nice. So for this, I think I'm going to give it 7/10. Let's go to Tailwind Elements. So I didn't really know about this before, but Tailwind Elements actually have integration with most popular frameworks. And if you don't know what Tailwind Elements is, well, let's go and let's look at this. These are basically just like a source of UI elements built with Tailwind CSS. And normally, they are actually framework agnostic. So that means you can use them with any framework you actually choose to use it with. Like, let's say, for example, as we can see right here, okay, you can use it as standard Tailwind, React 18, Django, Laravel, Next.js, Svelte, Solid Remix, React, Nuxt, Vue, and Angular. And I really didn't know that they actually have integration for Solid. This is nice. You can just say we install the necessary things, okay, and adjust our Tailwind config, okay, the index.css, we install the Tailwind elements, Okay. And one thing to notice, Tailwind Elements is more or less like a plugin for Tailwind CSS. Okay, so we can see this is actually really nice. So they have really nice components. I've looked through some of them before and I've checked them. Though I personally don't really use Tailwind Elements because a lot of times I don't really see the need to. But let's look at this. We can see, all right here, it actually gives you some additional classes which are basically abstracted on top of Tailwind CSS classes, but although very much customizable. So let's look at this collapse here, okay, which is more like accordion. And if we look at the code right here, we can see this is actually nice. And let's see, we have the forms right here, we have the data. One thing I want to search is if they have something like drawer. Okay, they don't, but they have the side nav. Okay, let's look at the code right here. This is actually the pro version right here. Oh, sorry about that. But let's look at the headers. Okay, so we can see the header right there. So you can just even let's say you need a particular element or Tailwind element component, you can just copy what we have here and inside of your code, and it's basically going to work. So overall, because they have a complete documentation, they have a lot more components or UI elements, and because it's actually a real nice alternative for SolidJS, I'm going to give this 7 out of 10. Remember earlier when we talked about Pigment and we said it was actually built using Tailwind CSS and Koblate? Well, let's actually move to Koblate. Okay, this is Koblate right here, and it is actually a UI toolkit for building accessible web apps and design systems with SolidJS. Okay, this is specifically made for SolidJS. And if you look at they have nice components. If we look at the components they actually have right here, so we have the accordion styled on styled, which is actually real nice. And we look at the alarms. Okay, let's see. So we have the alerts here. This is one of the reasons why I actually trust or have faith in Pigment, because it was actually built by the team behind Koblate, which from this shows they know actually what they're doing. And okay, we have the alert dialog. Let's open, we can see it right there, which is real nice. Okay, we have buttons, so let's look at the buttons. Okay, there really isn't much examples here, but okay, we have the button here. And let's go to the text field. Okay, that's one of the things that I also make sure to check. Okay, so we have one with default value. Okay, we have this text field area right here. All right, this one is not custom resizable, but what about this? Can we resize this? Okay, that's nice. So overall, this is actually very much simple and it is real nice. Not to mention that it's specifically built for SolidJS, supports server-side rendering with SolidStart, and not to mention that it's production ready. Overall, I think I'm going to give this 8 out of 10. Alright, let's move on to Ark UI. I've not really used Ark UI before, but it was when I was making research about this video, I stumbled upon it and it has actually been real nice. Even the UI, I think the home page itself, I think I love the design. So how about let's look at the components they have. And as we can see right here, it works for React, Solid, and Vue. So let's show our components and let's see what they have for us. So I'm going to change the preferred framework from React to Solid. Okay, so we can see it right here. These components are actually much more nicer than the ones we've seen so far in like Koblate and so on. All right, we can see it right here. This is actually real nice. Okay, I mean, I'm actually in love with this. All right, let's look at the toasts. Okay, because I don't want to have to be installing custom toast libraries or writing the code for that from scratch. So let's see, create toast. This is nice. So we have the title, description, and we can add action. This basically gives us everything that you could ever ask for. I'm looking for maybe text input or maybe an input of a kind. Let's see, this is actually nice. So my pin input one, nice, and the code for that is just very simple right here. Okay, let's look at the tab next. We have the tabs right here and the code for that, it's just this. I mean, this is real nice. Let's see if we have inputs. So this is the number input right here. Okay, this is also nice and interesting, but for some reason I'm not seeing the text field. I don't know, are my eyes missing that or it's not actually here? But before that, let's actually look at the carousel. So we have inbuilt carousel, which is nice, it looks cool, and we can also add this right here. Okay, I mean, the documentation is actually very complete and we can see the API reference and everything. So even if you need to toggle some things or play around with some things, you can actually just check the docs and you know that, yeah, the docs got you covered. And this is very much nice. We have some docs on animations right here. Okay, once again, real good. But there are some components that I can't find right here, like the text input. I don't know the reason why they didn't add this here, but overall, I think I'm going to give this 9 out of 10. So let's move on to Flowbite. Now, Flowbite is actually a very popular framework agnostic UI library. I mean, I've come across this multiple times before, and we can see we have integration for React, Next.js, Vue, Nox, Svelte, Angular, Astro, Remix, Meteor.js, Gatsby, Solid, Quick, Laravel, Symfony, Rails, Django, Phoenix, Flask, and Blazor, which is real nice. So let's look at what Flowbite is actually about. Let's go to their homepage. So Flowbite is actually similar to Tailwind Elements, but I think I prefer it more. I think it's better and better designed than Tailwind Elements. Not that Tailwind Elements isn't designed okay, but Flowbite is, in my opinion, better. And okay, one thing is, just like Tailwind Elements is also built on top of Tailwind CSS. So the styling is basically done with Tailwind CSS of the components. So we can see right here, we have all of these. So let's actually click on, yeah, this for SolidJS, and it's actually very simple. They install this npm run build, then you have to install Tailwind CSS as you would normally, and then install Flowbite. And then afterwards, you can start basically using this. And if you look at the components, let's basically look at the component that we have. So we have this component right here. So let's see bottom navigation. So we can see right here, this is actually real nice. I've used some of this code, not Flowbite directly, but I've used some codes they've generated before in some of my projects, which is actually real nice. So good job, Flowbite. And we can see right here, okay, look at it here, and we can see the code at the bottom here, and you can just copy in case you need a UI like this. Like I mentioned, it's better designed compared to something like Tailwind Elements. Okay, let's look at the drawer. Okay, so here is an example of the drawer, show drawer, and we can see the code beneath here. Okay, so they basically have tons and tons of components. Okay, the input field, let's look at the input field, if they are customizable. Okay, so we have this right here. Okay, so we have all of these disabled states. Okay, I mean, all of these are actually nice. We can even add icons to the side, to the left side or the right side right here, as we can see. So we can add button inside of. I believe it's very, very, very nice. I mean, I don't want to have to start styling some of this from scratch. I can just copy from their docs and just bring it inside of my project. And we have some other ones right here, and we can see the list we have right here of the components. They are actually much more comprehensive, even more than Ark UI that we just saw now. So good job, Flowbite. I think I'm going to give you 9 out of 10. Well done. So why not 10 out of 10 exactly, since they are just so amazing and I've been singing their praises since? Well, mainly because they are not specifically built for SolidJS. But enough about that. Let's go to our last entry on the list. We have Solid UI. And Solid UI is just so solid. I'm so excited about this because this is actually an unofficial port of ShatCN to SolidJS. Okay, so they basically brought ShatCN for SolidJS. I mean, which is so awesome. And if you have ever been in the React ecosystem, well, you know that ShatCN has been making a lot of buzz. A lot of developers actually love ShatCN because of the way it's built, the way it's accessible, customizable, and all of that. And I think also it makes use of Tailwind CSS under the hood. So let's actually look at it. I was so excited about this. Okay, so this is an unofficial community-led solid port of ShatCN, UI, and Tremor. Okay, yeah, you know. So if we look at the accordion, so yeah, we have this right here. You can basically just add the parts you essentially need. Okay, and you can just copy this and it's going to work. Let's look at the code for this. Okay, so I can just, once I have it, and the way this actually works is you are not importing from the package itself. As we can see right there, okay, we actually have components UI/accordion, and I can just copy this and bring it. So the code actually is going to be inside of my code base. And if you look at the installation, let's look at the installation step right there. Okay, so SolidStart. And we can see we can just do the installation. And one interesting thing is this works with SolidStart out of the box. So basically, you should expect that you'll be able to use things like server-side rendering with it. And okay, we can see this right there, Solid UI CLI. Okay, so we basically have the CLI installed for Solid UI. And once you've done that, and you basically need any component, all you just have to do is run Solid UI CLI latest add button. So that is automatically going to add this button, the code for the button, to your project. So let's say you need the button, and right here we have the button somewhere. Yeah, so this is the button. So the code base, the essential code for this button component, it's basically going to add that to your project. And you can also use either the CLI or you can add it manually. So we can look at it right here. Okay. So this is the code it actually adds inside of your project, which is sick. I mean, this is so nice. And when it comes to the installation guide, okay, we have for SolidStart, we have for Vite, we have for Astro. Yeah, you can actually make use of Solid inside of Astro. And if you've ever used Tauri, you can basically use any framework of your choice inside of Tauri applications. So we have right here the installation for all of these SolidJS use cases, which I think it's actually real nice and real dope. And that is why this particular UI library is going to get a 10 out of 10, considering the pros and cons of every UI libraries we've actually looked at so far. Solid UI is still the best one. Solid UI is solid. So let me know if there's any other UI library for SolidJS I've actually missed. Put that down in the comments below, and I'm going to look through them. I'm going to make my research about them and maybe make a part 2 of this particular video. And once again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'm going to see you in the next one.